Welcome to LawNext. I'm Bob Ambrogi, and today I'm joined by Jim Delkousis, the founder and CEO of PERSUIT, a legal tech company focused on transforming how corporate legal departments engage with outside counsel. We recorded this conversation at a particularly exciting moment for PERSUIT, as it was the day PERSUIT announced its acquisition of Apperio, a spend management platform for corporate legal, in a move designed to create an end-to-end workflow solution from matter intake to invoice payment. Before founding PERSUIT nearly 9 years ago, Jim had an accomplished career as a litigation attorney, serving as a partner at King & Wood Mallesons in Australia and later helping establish DLA Piper's Middle East practice in Dubai. In our conversation, we'll discuss how Jim's experience on the law firm side informed his mission to shift the legal industry from time-based to value-based fee arrangements. We'll also talk about the strategic vision behind the Apperio acquisition and how generative AI is accelerating the evolution of legal services delivery. As for me, I am Bob Ambrogi, and this is LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to that conversation, please take a moment to hear from the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Transform your immigration practice with LawLaw, the comprehensive case management system designed specifically for immigration attorneys. Access over 125 USCIS, DOJ, and EOIR forms, all updated within an hour of release, while automating your workflow with more than 40 predefined customizable processes. With multilingual client portals and questionnaires available in over 20 languages, they'll streamline client communication and enhance efficiency. Discover why LawLaw is the #1 rated immigration case management software by visiting lawlylaw.com. That's LOLLYLAW.com. You didn't go to law school to waste time writing and responding to discovery requests. Never waste time on discovery again with BriefPoint. BriefPoint drafts your discovery responses and requests for documents within minutes of your first sign-in. BriefPoint is the most reliable discovery drafting solution on the market, and it works right out of the box. Get your first document drafted by going to briefpoint.ai and clicking Get Started. No credit card required. BriefPoint. Draft what matters, automate the rest. Now let's get to today's conversation. Jim, welcome to LawNext.
Thanks for having me, Bob. It's good to meet you. We were just saying we haven't met before, even though we've, I'm sure, seen each other or known of each other for years.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to meet you and talk to you. I also appreciate that you are doing this on the day when you have just announced your acquisition of Apperio, and I'm sure that alone would make it a busy enough day, not to mention you're at Clock in Las Vegas getting ready for that, which adds further complication to the day. So against all of that backdrop, I really appreciate your taking the time to do this today.
You're welcome. It'll be fun.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the news. PERSUIT has acquired Apperio, and I want to dive into that in some detail. But because we've never talked before, I thought it might be fun to talk a little bit about your background first. I know that you had a long career as a lawyer, and by the looks of it, a highly successful one before you decided to kind of pivot to founding PERSUIT. So what is your background and how did you get here?
Okay. I usually start this with how long have you got, Bob, but assuming just a few minutes. So
as long as you want.
So look,
I started one of those like marathon 6-hour podcasts if you want to do that.
So look, I did start my career, and the bulk of my career was from the law firm side. So in the early days, I was in Australia as a partner at what was Mallesons, King & Wood Mallesons back then. And then in 2007, I joined DLA Piper in the Middle East. So my background was as a litigation lawyer. The Middle East journey was from 2007 to 2013. Still to this day, I'm not sure why DLA Piper plugged a lawyer out of Australia to set up their Middle East dispute practice, but that's what I did.
In Dubai,
and that was
right?
that was in Dubai, and that was a fantastic adventure. And I tell that story, Bob, because it kind of set the scene for me for when I started Pursuit. And the reason it did is this. I remember landing in Dubai. It was 2017. It was 1 July. My family was behind by about 6 months or so. And I'll never forget stepping onto the tarmac, and that's what you did at those days in Dubai, and this wave of heat just up. So it was around 110 plus degrees just hit me. My glasses fogged up. I thought, what is that? Anyway, made my way to a taxi, to a hotel, got changed, went to the office, was shown my office, and I remember sitting down and there was just one big empty room and empty shelves. And I looked around. And I just got to the highest level of equity in my previous firm. So I'd done all of this work, and it was at that stage it was lockstep. And I remember looking around, and I could not see a single file. I could not see a single prospect. I didn't know the language. I didn't know the laws. I didn't have a single client. We didn't have a brand at the time. DLA had no brand. And then I had this overwhelming feeling of anxiety and regret. I thought, oh my God, what have I done?
So that's when you said, I'll start Pursuit.
Yeah. But what happened, those 6 years were the most rewarding professionally that I've ever had.
Really?
I started from scratch and built a team, built a reputation. And what those 6 years showed me is, look, if you're a little bit fortunate, but you work really hard, anything is possible. And it showed me that I could potentially build something from scratch. We did it in law. And I'd always had a couple of things. One, a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit, but two, I'd always been frustrated with the way I saw legal operating, and particularly the relationship between our clients and the law firms, how there wasn't much transparency, quite opaque. It was very relationship driven. And my thesis or my hypothesis at the time was the legal marketplace is like all marketplaces. Ultimately, they become more transparent, competitive, more choice over time, and more efficient. And the birth of Pursuit was to help in that mission, to improve the marketplace, to improve the transparency, and to improve the currency or shift the currency, which was time-based. Everything was time-based. That didn't seem right to me, to value-based fee arrangements. And that's really how Pursuit started, on a mission to change the way that the legal industry engaged and defined value, from time to value-based arrangements. So I think today that's kind of what Pursuit, certainly pre-Apperio acquisition, that's what Pursuit is known for in the market. Was that too long? Was that too much background there, Bob?
No. We've still got another 5 minutes left of the interview.
Good.
No. I mean, it's kind of interesting because you were kind of you've created a product for in-house counsel, but you were on the other side of that transaction in your practice. So how did you kind of come around to deciding you needed to focus on that side of the deal?
So it's a couple of things. In fact, right at the very beginning, I did think, I've clearly come from the law firm side. That's where I'm connected. Let me go and pitch, essentially, on the law firm side about value-based arrangements. And I learned very quickly, Bob, that I would starve very quickly if I kept that strategy, because law firms, what they're excellent at is delivering on what clients want. But if it's not coming from clients, it's very hard. So, and I learned very early on, is once we persuaded clients or the in-house teams of large corporates to transition their matters to value-based arrangements, then the law firms, that was the demand side bringing the supply side on. That's the way I kind of describe it. And that was much, much better, a much better go-to-market strategy for us too. And it kind of made sense. I think by the time we had our first 20 Fortune 500 customers, we had most of the AmLaw 100. on Pursuit, and that was just a demonstration of the demand side really bringing the supply side on. So that's how really it became obvious to me that if we could change the market, we had to do it from the client side because it wasn't going to happen from the law firm side.
Yeah. And so prior to today, if I had talked to you yesterday, say,
Yeah.
what is Pursuit, and kind of how has it evolved since you founded it?
Yep. So it's always been, how do we help in-house teams engage their law firms in a way which is not just hourly rate, which is value-based. So you think about alternative fee arrangements. How do we do it in a way which drives towards the outcomes rather than the time? And again, that's how alternative fee arrangements are typically structured. There's an outcome in mind. And how do you do it also in a way which is transparent and a bit competitive? So right now, the Pursuit customers, the in-house teams using Pursuit, scope the work that they need on Pursuit. They invite their law firms to submit proposals, and they have a level of transparency across, that is, the clients have the transparency, and they also have some competition too. So the law firms, should the clients choose, can revise their pricing real time in light of what other law firms are pricing, all anonymized, of course. But it helps bring certainly a level of competitiveness, but also just transparency in the legal market. And when law firms can see what their peers are charging, that drives a level of competition. And what we often see is a convergence in the spread of pricing submitted from when the pricing is originally submitted to by the time that the pricing has been revised by the law firms.
That's anonymized in some way? I mean, how are they seeing it?
Yeah. So clients have, or customers have, a choice as to what level of transparency, whether they just ranking or rank and price, or price right down to each phase and activity level. It's always anonymized on the law firm side. So law firms don't see, unless the clients choose to disclose that, but law firms don't see who they're proposing their prices against and who else is in the running.
Yeah. So today is the start of the Clock conference in Las Vegas, where you are, and today you launched your acquisition of Apperio. I suspect this is not just a coincidence of timing that
Funny
these
that
are happening at the same time. But what's the sort of strategic vision here? What drove you to want to make this acquisition?
Yeah, what became and has become clear to us over time, Bob, is that there is a need in the market for not just the, if you like, the part that Pursuit, or the workflow that Pursuit handles, which is competitive and transparent value-based fee arrangements. That's just part of the workflow. The workflow actually starts from intake. When the matter comes into the corporate in-house, does it stay in-house? Does it go to external? It goes from there to identifying which firms are on your panel, which firms are suited, which firms am I choose, what are the value-based arrangements, right through to fixing a price, through to then tracking to make sure the invoicing is consistent with the alternative fee arrangement that's been agreed, and right through to invoice review and payment. So in other words, an end-to-end workflow. And it's the first time, I think, in the market that we've got an end-to-end workflow, and that's what our customers have been saying. Pursuit, can you help solve more of the problem, whether it's at the intake, whether it's we want to be able to track. We've got that great price on Pursuit, but we want to be able to track it now and make sure all the invoicing is aligned with that price, that if there are any variations, that the workflow captures that right through to invoice review and payment. And so that's the benefit, if you like. Once you put Pursuit and Apperio together, you end up completing that end-to-end workflow right from intake through to invoice review and payment.
in the announcement that you put out today up on your website, you said that this is, quote, part of a broader product integration that delivers superpowers to in-house teams.
Yeah.
So is that what you're talking about? That sort of end-to-end integration?
Correct. That's certainly part of it. There's of course lots of nuances there. Part of the superpower is going to be what I've described, making sure that the pursuit price, the promise of the pursuit price is delivered, and making sure the workflow will be able to, because there are always changes in scope of work. That always happens. And one thing we've heard in the past, so litigation matters or M&A matters, they always change in scope. That's right. Being able to actually have a workflow that deals with and can price that change of scope is part of the superpower. Another part is Apperio has a very unique offering where it essentially taps into the law firm time recording system. So you can see, as a client, you can see the accruals and the work in progress before you get the billing. And so to help, and that's part of the superpower, having that level of transparency. We all know what it's like when the invoice lands and you open up and you think, oh my God. And we've heard that story many times before, of course, the invoice surprise, but the Apperio offering enables clients to, as I said, to see work in progress build, set alerts so that it can help basically manage the external spend. And that's what we hear. Ultimately, what we've heard from the market is the in-house team is under more and more pressure, and the expectations of how it's going to manage external spend are increasing. External spend is typically about 50% of the total cost of the legal function in a large corporate, bringing some rigor, transparency, and a new operating model in relation to the way that external spend is managed is certainly aligned with the new expectations or the changing expectations of the General Counsel's office.
The founder of Apperio, the former CEO, Nicholas Datamar, on this podcast a few years ago, in which I think the title of the podcast episode was something like "In Defense of the Billable Hour," where he made the case for why that remains a rational basis for law firms to charge for their services. Is that still so? Are you still seeing any evolution in that regard?
Look, there's definitely an evolution. One of the, and in fact, we had about 2 or 3 clocks in a row where the pursuit theme was the kill bill theme, kill billable hour. And look, to an extent, that is still the case for a significant portion of the work that does not need to be hourly rate. That one of the products we recently launched was price benchmarking. Because we've had so much data now around fixed and alternative fee arrangements for different types of matters across the world, we can now price benchmark, well, what does a litigation matter of this nature in Texas, what should it cost? What are the different phases, the activities, and what should each of those cost? So I think on Pursuit right now, Bob, about 80% of the work that goes through is not hourly rates. In other words, alternative fee arrangements of some kind. Outside of Pursuit, the percentages are reverse. Only about 20% of matters are alternative fee arrangement and 80% hourly rate. So is there some scope and room for hourly rates? Of course, but certainly not to the degree which we see outside of Pursuit. We think about, and now being in the space for nearly 9 years, we think that 80-20 split, 80% alternative fee arrangement and 20 pure hourly rate is probably about right. That may continue to kind of the AFAs might continue to increase over time, but I think we're at about that balance where yes, there is room for the hourly rate, but certainly not the room that it's been taking up in the past.
I was speaking with Jim Delkousis, the founder and CEO of PERSUIT, about the company's acquisition of Apperio and how this creates an end-to-end workflow for managing outside counsel relationships. Jim's explained how he sees the legal industry evolving in its pricing models, with Pursuit's platform seeing 80% of matters using alternative fee agreements. When we return to the conversation, I'll ask Jim for his thoughts on how generative AI is impacting legal billing models and the future roadmap for Pursuit following this strategic acquisition. But first, please take this opportunity to learn about the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Immigration attorneys, are you ready to modernize your firm's billing process with LawLext? Create invoices in seconds, offer flexible payment plans, and accept payments via SMS, QR codes, and client portals available in over 20 languages. LawLext's native payment processing helps you maintain steady cash flow while giving clients the flexibility they need. Combined with real-time form updates and comprehensive case tracking, LawLext eliminates the obstacles slowing down your immigration practice. Experience the difference at lawlext.com. That's LOLLYLAW.com. Voice recognition is great for quick texts or emails, but when accuracy matters, AI guesses. As you well know, in law, guessing isn't an option. With SpeakRight, real human transcriptionists deliver accurate, professionally formatted legal documents in about 3 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The free mobile app provides instant access to trained legal secretaries, plus Clio integration for seamless filing. It's like carrying a full support staff on your phone. LawNext listeners, claim your $100 free credit right now at speakright.com/LawNext. Welcome back to LawNext. I'm Bob Ambrogi, and I'm continuing my conversation with Jim Delkousis, the founder and CEO of PERSUIT, who joined us on the same day his company announced the acquisition of Apperio. Before the break, Jim was sharing insights on how alternative fee arrangements are becoming more common, as reflected in the data running through PERSUIT. Now I ask him about his thoughts on whether generative AI might further accelerate the shift away from the traditional billing hour model, or even be its death knell. Let's get back to that conversation.
Interesting. Since we're on the topic, there's been so much talk lately about the concept that generative AI is going to further drive the nail into the coffin of the billable hour. What's your take on that notion?
I believe it 100%. I used to joke that it was PERSUIT that was going to kill the billable hour until ChatGPT came along and absolutely ran past us. I think it's just not credible now, Bob, to say that time is a currency of value. And certainly it's not the currency that should reign supreme in managing the relationships between in-house teams and law firms. It can't be right. And each one of us, the way we do our work, even outside of the law, but certainly in the law, if I think about the way I have changed my behavior, I had a great example where we recently entered into a licensing arrangement with a third party. Once we had agreed the 4 or 5 principles, Bob, I prompted ChatGPT, here are the principles. I want you to come up with a fair and balanced agreement between PERSUIT and X. It did that. I sent that agreement, I sent my prompt, and I sent the 2 very brief markups to the other side and said, here's what I've done. Here's my prompt. Here's the agreement. They came back. That was done. And that's just me. And I kind of try to multiply that out. If you multiply that thousands or hundreds of thousands, millions of times, I think that is, that is just a tiny microcosm of what is going to happen in the future.
Yes.
And then back to your point, or the point we're talking about, I think it cannot be the case that time will be the predominant currency of value in legal anymore.
Yes, I certainly agree with you. So turning back to the acquisition,
Yep.
which is what we're supposed to be talking about. What about the integration plans? I mean, now that you've acquired a company, what are the plans for integrating Apperio's technology into your technology? What should customers expect?
Yep. Look, so like all good acquisitions, you have a 3 to 6 month plan, 6 to 9 month, 9 to 12 month, and beyond. So we've put together a plan. We already have integrations with Apperio, and we've already got customers who are taking advantage of those integrations. And that started because our partnership has been around for a little while now. So we've had the benefit of working together with joint customers. Now, I should say that's not to say that it's PERSUIT and Apperio or nothing, because what we've done is ensured that we're taking kind of a modular approach. A number of our, whether it's customers or the market, already has solutions in that workflow. So you need to be able to basically integrate with the solutions that they have to complete the end-to-end workflow. So although PERSUIT and Apperio is end-to-end, our strategy is to make sure that, in a sense, we're kind of modular. So let's say if it's the RFP and value-based fee arrangements, the AFA module that you need, okay, great. If it's the panel management module, we have panel management module where our customers can essentially have all the details for all their panel law firms on the single platform, their commercial arrangements, which lawyers they're using, the feedback and so forth. And maybe that's just a module that you need. Or you just might want Apperio's accruals or WIP modules. So our view is we need to deliver the end-to-end, but as the market has different requirements and it's got its own, for example, e-billing requirements, then you can just integrate with existing solutions. So that's broadly the strategy, end-to-end if it's needed, but modular if the market just requires some, but not all, of those end-to-end solutions.
What should your current customers expect will be different or the same based on this acquisition?
So some of the feedback that we had from our existing customers is, Jim, we love PERSUIT, we love the competitive pricing, we love the alternative fee arrangements. You've promised us a price, but then we have to manually track to make sure that is the price that we paid. Okay, so that was what we're hearing loud and clear. We can now, I talk about PERSUIT now can deliver on the PERSUIT promise or the PERSUIT price, because we can now. So that is a big difference, that kind of extension of the workflow, so that we can deliver on the price that was agreed with PERSUIT, and you can do it in a way which tracks both with Apperio's work in progress or accruals product, as well as being able to then handle scope changes, because scope always changes. There are always, whatever it might be, unknowns, and you can't let that. And sometimes skeptics let the prospect of a scope change say, well, I can't do an alternative fee arrangement because I know scope is going to change. But that shouldn't be good enough. You should be able to do that. You should be able to tie down the phases and activities, and then you should be able to manage scope changes in the workflow. So that's another thing that our customers will be seeing in the market, will be able to take the benefit of.
Yeah. What about Apperio's customers? What should they expect will be different or will be the same?
So to the extent that there are part of the, if you like, the PERSUIT offerings, the PERSUIT model, to the extent, and we've already started exploring with some of those Apperio customers, they could track the spend and track through accruals, but they didn't have a way to manage the engagements that the in-house attorneys would undertake with their external law firms, and they didn't have a way to drive, let's say, efficiencies and cost savings through competitively sourced alternative fee arrangements. So the Apperio customers will now have the benefit of not only the PERSUIT product, but obviously the PERSUIT people and the expertise too, to help kind of deliver that new operating model in relation to the way externals spend or outside counsels are selected and managed, and the whole external spend is dealt with. So
does Apperio remain a standalone product in some way, or is it ultimately going to be fully integrated and the brand goes away? Or
well, certainly that it'll be ultimately integrated. As for the brand, we'll see what happens to the brand down the track. But of course, right now we've got the PERSUIT customers, we've got Apperio customers. We're going to look to deliver value, obviously, to both. We need to have a seamless and integrated workflow because that's what customers want. They don't want to be popping in and out of different solutions, and so that's part of the goal and the objective of any integration, any technology integration. So that's what we'll be working on.
Yeah. Apart from integration itself, are there has this in any way impacted kind of your innovation roadmap for your company as you look forward over the next year or two?
Yeah,
what you're planning to be working on.
Yeah, no, absolutely integral to it. Because of that, the vision has been to solve as many problems as we can end to end, and because I think over time there's always risk in effectively solving point solution type problems. So the Apperio acquisition was core and is core to that notion that you have to own end to end. You have to be able to solve different problems along the way. And now with what we're seeing with agentic AI helping through each stage, we see that entire end-to-end workflow, that's going to look very, very different, Bob, very quickly. A couple of the releases that we've just announced this week at Clock is, if we look at our AI smart sourcing capability, what does that mean? You can now drop a complaint into our smart scoping capability, and you will get a complex RFP in relation to that kind of matter so to then send out to the law firms. Phased activity, all the assumptions, all of the background. And this was a real pain point. I didn't appreciate it was such a pain point because we had a lot of we had all the templates for different scopes of work. You just had to pick one, but that was actually a bit of pain point. Now you literally prompt, either upload a complaint or prompt here, I'm looking for an RFP for this kind of matter. I'm X company, and that generates it in, I think I saw the last one was 45 seconds or something like that. And it gets straight into editing mode and then send it to your law firms. That's just one example. When the proposals come back, you can now natural language query all of the proposals. Hey, put together a graph which shows me let's say the second to the fourth proposal, comparing A, B, and C in those proposals. Or tell me what the weaknesses of X firm's proposal are. That is incredibly powerful. And they're just kind of two examples. You'll get recommendations, not only which are my panel firms and which firms do we use, but which other firms do I not know about? Which other lawyers do I not know about? One of the partnerships we've just entered into with is Firm Prospects. I don't know, Bob, if you know about Firm Prospects, but essentially Firm Prospects have been around for about a similar time to PERSUIT, but they have a curated database of, I think, about 600,000 lawyers and all of their profiles, data that comes from, obviously the websites, or publicly available information. That information now is all accessible. So if you think about the workflow, the transparency, I think where we're heading, Bob, is a true kind of marketplace for the buying of complex legal services. Which
does this change your market at all for that? The market that you serve or expand?
I think over time it will. Over time, it will. I think right now we've always been super focused on essentially Fortune 500, so enterprise. They had the biggest problems, the biggest spend, and so it was the most value we could deliver there. But I can see over time that expanding well beyond just the Fortune 500 to 1,000, 2,000 to mid-market, because the problems of finding a lawyer, getting the right price and doing it in a way which is driving towards an outcome, a certain outcome, that's a problem worldwide. It's not just at the high enterprise space. So I definitely see this creating opportunities beyond the segments that we're focused on right today.
Well, Jim, I want to be respectful of your time here today. I know it's a busy time for you. Anything else you'd like to point out about this deal or anything else?
Look, only that we're incredibly excited. It's certainly been a 9-year journey for us. And the Apperio team, I think Apperio, in fact, was founded just a couple of years before PERSUIT. But I can see, driven by the expectations and the requirements of the market, particularly the General Counsel's office and the changing expectations on the General Counsel's office, I can certainly see a drive towards what PERSUIT and Apperio are looking to execute. End-to-end transparency, being able to leverage AI. There's pressure. You would have heard that, the pressure of in-house teams to find use cases around AI. So I think the next 12 months, I'd say 24 months, but you can't go out that far now with AI. But I think the next 12 months, you're going to see some really interesting developments in that end-to-end workflow and the capability of AI across that workflow. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in the space.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to do this today. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic, Bob. Enjoy the discussion.
Yep. Congratulations on the deal, and enjoy Las Vegas if that's a thing.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure it is, but thanks.
All right. Thanks for listening to today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments, please do so by messaging us on LinkedIn or other social media, or just email me directly, ambrogi@gmail.com. If you're a fan of the show, leave us a review. LawNext is a production of LawNext Media. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of LawNext.